30 seconds, Sally.
Let's talk. Hello, welcome to Let's Talk. I'm Sally Gibney. I'm so delighted to have you here today and this wonderful studio audience. Welcome. Thank you all for coming. We're here today to talk about the Dorset Quarry. The Dorset Quarry is the oldest American quarry. Would you believe that? And it has been, well, they started getting marble there in the early 1800s. It's just a wonderful, wonderful gift to our community. And the current owners are Dick and Kirsten McDonough. They've been, I guess they've owned the quarry since 1997. And they're amazing. They have just done so much to keep it open for us. But recently, there's been some vandalism there, and some really, really serious things have been going on. And we as a community need to come together and help Dick and Kristen keep this wonderful, wonderful treasure going. So my guest today is Steve Bryant. Hi, Steve.
Hi, thank you, Sally. Glad to be here.
So good to have you here. Steve, you're the owner of the Dorset Inn and the Barrows House, and you're very involved in the community, aren't you?
We've been involved with Dorset since 2008 with our acquisition with ourselves and a couple investors of the Dorset Inn, and we acquired the Barrows House end of 2012, and the community's been very good to us, and
you've been good to us too.
Well, thank you.
You've brought a lot of life to this community.
We appreciate that. So our goal is just to be cheerleaders and facilitate community involvement for this cause. I think this is just a very worthy community endeavor. So,
well, we're really all very concerned about the quarry. You know, we all love the quarry very much, and there's been a lot going on, and this vandalism has really brought up a lot of different issues, just the damage, but also safety issues. And before we get started, Dick McDonough was here 2 weeks ago, and he spoke to some members of the community about what's going on and what his concerns are and what we need to do to keep the quarry available and open to the community. So before we get started, let's hear what Dick has to say.
Okay.
Well, first of all, I want to thank everybody for coming. My name is Dick McDonough, and I think you probably know that I own the quarry owns me. I'm not sure which it is, but it's been an interesting experience. I guess the thing that precipitated the meeting was last October I went down to take some pictures of the quarry, and to my surprise I found that somebody had done extensive cutting all around the quarry, literally hundreds of trees and shrubs, and that really got me upset, and I'm still upset about it. And after spending a lot of years trying to maintain it and improve it and share it with the community, I'm really kind of looking to get the community to come in and help me. And so that's kind of the bottom line. I appreciate your interest in it, and I appreciate everybody being here. And my purpose is to have a instructive meeting here, and hopefully we can come up with a suggestion or proposal. And as far as I'm concerned, this is interactive. Everybody ought to feel free to participate or ask questions or make suggestions if you have any. I thought what I would do is just probably take about 10 or 15 minutes, tell you what it's like to own the quarry and what's been involved in the ownership of it, and then talk about, at least I have one proposal for a possible solution. But we bought the property back in November of '97, and shortly thereafter, well, I was down at the quarry, and a policeman came up to me and said, you know, we don't go in there unless there are two of us. And I go, whoa, what have I gotten myself into? And so we decided to open it up, which was extremely controversial. I can show you the headline here, but there was a headline back then, Quarry Quandary, and the guy that was doing the clearing to open it up got threatened. He had to park his equipment up on our property. There were all sorts of rumors in terms of what we were doing. We were really just trying to open it up and beautify it. And our main objective was to, because it was so secluded, there was a lot of activity going on in there. A lot of it was mischievous, and I won't go into it, but you can imagine there were drugs and a lot of other things. By opening it up, we made it more family-oriented. The thing that's changed most dramatically over the years is that over time, the internet has taken over. And I got on this afternoon just briefly, but there were 65,000 hits on just 2 websites telling people about the quarry, how to come and dive, cliff diving, giving them directions in terms of how to get here. So that's what's changed dramatically. People say, well, why is the traffic so much heavier than it used to be? But that's the main reason, at least in my view. And it really has drawn people from all over. You go down and look at I think the most I've ever seen is like 110 cars there, and they turn over. So during a day like that, it'd probably be several hundred people, at least, maybe as many as 500 to 700 people. So the first thing we did was open it up. And then along the road, I was concerned because it was kind of at the same level as the highway. So I took the blocks that were there and then we laid them out to create a wall. I was concerned that perhaps a child might just wander in there, and so by building the wall, at least have a little bit of a barrier there so they wouldn't wander in. As I say, we landscaped it. We took those blocks which were piled up, and there were trees on top of the blocks, cut them down, spread them out, and basically attempted to beautify it, putting the lawn in, and it's kind of a little amphitheater effect right by the quarry, if you will. I don't know how much you know about the history, but unfortunately somebody was killed there in the 50s because there were these steel rods all around the quarry. And I just know what I've been told, which was he fell out of a tree onto one of the rods and impaled himself. It was a local boy, which was absolutely tragic. So the next thing I did was have somebody come in and take down all the rods, and except I left the ones in that I thought were historic, where the derricks were, and every year I paint those orange so they're highly visible. I go around the quarries and spray paint them basically, so you can't not know that they're there. The other thing that was going on is they would crawl out onto the limbs of the trees, and they'd be teetering on the edge, and of course quarry doesn't give way. It's not exactly a cushion, so I had to cut down a number of trees, cut down a number of limbs. I still have to maintain that. I find that every year they'll put a swing in with a rope and whatnot, so I have to cut those ropes down. I could go on and on with stories. They put steps up one of the. They hammered wooden pegs up a tree so they could climb up on the top, and they put a platform up there. I took down the wooden pegs. They then came in and put down in the metal screw-in pegs that somebody would use when they go hunting. Next, I took those down. They then came and put a rope up there so they could pull themselves up. And then somebody dove off of the top of a pine tree and didn't come up. And the people that were there came to me and said, this guy was a joker, basically. He swam all the way down to the end of the quarry. They thought he had drowned, you know. So I had somebody come in and cut down that tree. That's just like one example. But we added one of the issues we had was people were parking all along Route 30. So I went to the Board of Selectmen, and we had to go to the state in order to move them off of the highway. because some of them were literally changing on the highway, and the drivers were distracted, as you might imagine, and that caused some accidents, and there were actually accidents. But moving it over to Kelly Road created another set of problems, which was people on Black Rock Road, which is off of, or was off of Kelly Road, felt that during the really busy times they couldn't get access to their. I always thought that you come in from the other side, and actually the head of the state police said he'd never seen a situation where they couldn't get access, but worked with Chris and the select board, and especially Rob, to find a solution to this, and we basically exchanged property. I got something I've always wanted. I always wanted to own Kelly Road. It was at the top of my list. So I inherited what then became a parking lot, and had the opportunity to finish that off. We actually expanded it so it could handle more cars, and we sealed it off on one end so that people couldn't go up the Black Rock, and then on the side I put a ditch so they wouldn't pull across the property onto Route 30, which would have been more dangerous and of course would have damaged my property. That's a little bit of the background in terms of some of the things that we did to kind of improve the quarry. From a maintenance standpoint, I've never counted all the cans and bottles and underwear and towels and sandals and stuff that I picked up, but it's in the thousands. I've been doing it since '97. And I would say that it has definitely improved over the past few years. Some of the people in the community have taken a more active role, and actually Casella was very generous last year and put a trash container there, which I think helped enormously. So the cleanup is not as heavy a burden as it used to be, but used to have to clean up Kelly Road, which I still have to do basically, which is now a parking area. So that's one of the things that's going on for quite a while. I usually end up with probably 2 to 3 ash cans full of garbage when I get down and clean it up. We have people that put graffiti on there every year, so I have to go down and spray that, or try and clean it off the rocks. You'll see a lot of black spots. That's where people did graffiti, and I try to find a color that's comparable to the marble so that it doesn't show too much. Of course, we maintain the lawn. I trim the brushes. I put a bridge in across the little creek there because people were, slipping and falling getting over there. At one point, I had to pay for the police to come in on weekends. We did that for about 3 or 4 weekends. They'd come in usually late in the afternoon, stay for 4 or 5 hours just to maintain some semblance of order in the quarry. I go down there regularly and kind of monitor it for misbehavior. The fundamental problem, and we've had zip lines, which I've had that people take down. They had an incident before I bought the quarry where, it wasn't a zip line, it was a swing. The kid swung out, lost his nerve, came back in, hit the wall, broke his arm, sued the former owners. So that's why I cut down the ropes every year, and zip lines are probably just as dangerous, if not more dangerous, because you pick up more speed. So that's a little bit about owning a quarry. I could literally write a book about it. From a community standpoint, I view it as a community resource. The fire department does their training down there several times a year. Usually it's around sunset or so, they'll come over with a truck and spray and operate all their equipment. The state police use it for their scuba rescue training. They do that a couple of times. They haven't done it as much in the last year or so, but they used to be there fairly regularly. The State Highway Department has come to me in drought situations and said, we'd like to pump the water out so we can clean off the bridges. And so I've given them the water for that. And then, of course, if there's a really serious fire, in some situations they've pumped the water out to fill the fire trucks to go to the fire. I'll tell you a funny story. This was a long time ago. When we first bought it, somebody came to me and said, we'd like to put a fire hydrant in so we don't have to cut through the ice. And I said, well, that's fine, you know. And they said, where were we located? Well, we located outside the wall. And I said, well, that's fine. And, you know, it'd be a lot easier to get the water out when that chopped through the ice. And, you know, in an emergency like a fire, you'd like to be able to do that immediately. And then they said to me, but we'd like you to pay for it. I said, it's not going to happen. I already pay fire taxes like everybody else. And so they never did it. I don't understand why, because if they're going to use it in that manner, that's what they should do. July 3rd, the USA Today wrote it up as one of the top 12 private swimming holes in the United States, which didn't really need that publicity. And the other 11 are all owned by the government, or they're all public parks or whatever. So that probably caused a lot of people that didn't know of it otherwise to come. It's in the tourist guides, it's in the local maps, it's been on local TV, of course the local tours, a lot of the B&Bs, and certainly the trailer park. I probably have hundreds of people come from the trailer park every year. So a lot of the local folks promote it, and that's understandable, but again, I'm kind of at the point where saying it's kind of time for somebody else to help me out with this a little bit. As I said, it's on Google, it's on YouTube. When I got on Google today, I found that somebody has put an invitation on there to come up on May 27th and do a scuba dive, somebody located in New York. So there's kind of no end to the promotion of it. The question I get most frequently is, well, aren't you concerned about liability? And the answer is yes, I am. And I'm a lawyer, and so the best we could do to protect ourselves was to put it into a limited liability corporation. So, and it's subdivided, so it's its own asset basically. And if somebody wants to own it, we can have a discussion immediately after this meeting. And we work out a deal, I promise you. If you really, the town doesn't want to own it, the state doesn't want to own it. I've actually enjoyed owning it. And again, my main enjoyment is seeing young families and seeing the kids especially. They really, for them, it's a lifelong experience and a memory for them. So that's probably the main reason I do it. We're protected to some degree, hopefully to a large degree, by a special law in the state of Vermont that provides that if you allow somebody to come on your property for recreational purposes, you don't have any responsibility to them unless you do something to intentionally injure them. And I'm told by one of the state legislators that part of the legislative history was an actual discussion of the Dorset Quarry, which gives me some comfort knowing that it's part of it. And there have been cases that's gone all the way up to the Supreme Court in the state of Vermont, and they've enforced the law in some pretty some circumstances where children have been injured, and they just said, well, that's the law, and so they've actually upheld the law, which is encouraging, at least to me. I don't want to see any children hurt. We've had thefts in the parking lot, we've had drug problems. The major problem in the quarry, in my view, is alcohol. Try and prohibit it, but it finds its way in, and you know, just knowing younger children, and I have a couple of them, believe it or not. I have a 19-year-old, a 20-year-old, and a 48-year-old, just to cover the bases here, and three others. But they're under peer pressure, and they start to drink, and they do crazy things. That's what I think causes fundamentally a lot of the problems down there. Whenever I'm down there, there's one block. They all encourage the other people to jump off of it, and you've got to clear the edge. I'm sure if you frequented the quarry, you know what I'm talking about. And every time I'm down there, I tell them to get off, and I know as soon as I leave, they're probably right back up there again. The other thing that really concerns me is broken glass, because I can't tell you the number of bottles that I've picked up. But when you see a young child, you know, 7, 8, they're so enthusiastic about being there. They're not paying attention to where they're running, you know, and that really concerns me. So far, I don't know of anybody that's been cut by the glass, but that's the one thing that I really feel important to clean up and pick up, and I hope that the people that are now helping me with some of the refuse pickup are also picking up the broken glass, because that's the most serious problem. So that's all by way of background. Maybe it's too much background, but in thinking it through, you know, first of all, again, I'm appreciative of the fact that you're here and you're interested. I'd like to get the community more involved in trying to figure out what's the right structure to do that. And I'm thinking about possibly forming a 501c3 charitable foundation, and it would have the purpose of eventually getting the quarry registered as an historical site. And there's a certain amount of research that's been done. Art could probably complete the application himself without even referring to anything, but it's a fairly complicated application because you have to go back in history. But the history is, I think most of the history is there. I mean, there's not a lot of additional work that needs to be done other than completing the applications. And then secondly, if we had such a foundation, I would look to the foundation to kind of preserve the quarry, if you will, to assist in maintaining it and, you know, hopefully maybe even beautify it a little bit. As I say, it really was ravaged, and I don't know what the motivation of whoever did it, but it had to be a group, because if you walked up there, there were stacks about this high of branches. I had somebody drag some of them down to the front, but that's just a small sample of what they did. And so it had to be a group. It had to be done over probably at least a couple of days, unless it was an extremely large group. And on a personal level, the fact that this occurred, and it must have occurred when I wasn't at home, because I can hear from my house what's going on in the quarry. And there had to be a number of chainsaws down there. I was only away for 4 days at one period, and that has to have been when it occurred, because it was only like a week or two after that I went down to check it out and found the damage. But frankly, disappointed that nobody's come forward. And if somebody come forward in the first instance, I probably would have had a different attitude than I do right now. But I'm very upset about it, having personally invested myself and invested financially in the quarry, that nobody knows what happened. You know, it's just, you can see, well, I did report it to the police. I checked 30 days later, he hadn't even filled out a police report. So I don't think they ever seriously investigated it. And of course, there was a newspaper article describing what had happened back then. So again, that's all in the past. I'd like to look to the future now. I just wanted to share with you some of what's involved so I can understand some of the challenges and some of the things I think we need to address. If we could form this type of foundation, and it's not a slam dunk by any means. There's some issues. It can't, 501c3 can't benefit an individual. Certainly wouldn't benefit me. It would be done for the quarry. And I have never told, I told Roger earlier, I've never taken $1, you know, and since '97. But I have found about 78 cents, you know, loose change in the parking lot or up in the rocks, but that's about it. So I'd like to just open it for a dialogue, a discussion, get your thoughts.
Oh my goodness, isn't that something? I mean, who would have believed that all of this was going on? And Dick and Kirsten have been so good to all of us in opening the quarry so all of us can, I know I swim there every day during the summer and I absolutely love it, and I know so many others do too. So we're here today to talk about what we can do as a community to keep this going and to keep it open. What do you think?
I think the swimming has kept you looking very young and fit. And I think it should be a model for the rest of us.
I'm so glad you can come back and be a guest anytime.
Thank you.
No, but seriously, this is really, really a serious issue, don't you think?
I do. I think the quarry kind of represents everything that Dorset, that is Dorset. It's the genesis of what the community is there. You know, it dates back to 1785. Lots of buildings have been built, the New York Public Library, so it's really rich in history. And today we all know it as a swimming hole, and as you know, as Dick mentioned, it's listed as one of the top swimming holes in the
United
world,
States,
apparently.
yeah, which is you know, we
with
know
even some coverage in England.
yes.
So.
Yeah. No, it's really, and this vandalism, you know, there have been things going on over the years, and Dick would always sort of take care of it, and you never even knew that it was happening. And but now, I mean, what's happened recently, I think, has been kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. It's kind of like they're feeling that they're in this alone, and that how long can they keep going like this? So we as a community have to come up with some ideas, some ways that we can show them that we are part of this and that we're grateful for what they've done. And, you know, what I want to hear from all of you, because how many of you have used the quarry? How many of you love the quarry? And what do you think that we can do? Does anybody have any ideas? Anyone want to say something?
I have a thought. He was mentioning the websites that people have. What about having a web presence which explains this and gives a little clip like he had just then? Maybe one that is more refined but explains it and explains how people could be nurturing to the quarry and to each other and keeping a watch for each other. And maybe there could be a site where people could report to him what they observe so he's not having to be there every second.
That's an idea. That's a very good idea.
Excellent
idea. I think that I had mentioned to him about going on Facebook and letting them know that this is a private. Most people don't realize that this is a private quarry, that it's privately owned.
I think many people this shows that many people just take it for granted. And I think what we've seen over the last couple months with discussions that in general, the community is very supportive, and the awareness that you have helped bring to this cause has made people think. And
you know, when a couple of years ago, I wrote Dick a thank you note, and I said thank you for the quarry, because I was swimming there all the time and I loved it so much. And he called me and said that it was only the second thank you he had ever received in all the years he had owned the quarry. And so the next year I went on a weekend and I brought paper with me and I asked people, I told them, do you know that this is privately owned? And what do you have to say to the owners? And people wrote the most incredible notes, and they said, well, I've been coming here for 40 years, or my children were here, or we love to have a place where we can come with our children and just be outside in the sunshine and swim, and so they didn't realize that it was privately owned. So I put it together in a little book and gave it to them. But I think that the awareness, and I think bringing volunteers, we can all volunteer. Of course, there are a couple of things we can do. We can be volunteers to help keep it maintain it and clean it and do different things that need to be done, and also possibly somehow some monetary donations to do the things that we couldn't do as volunteers. Talk about the schools, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of community involvement, one thing that is going to happen is there's going to be a cleanup day on May 22nd, I believe. And that's being spearheaded by the Long Trail School and their student body.
Stephen Deere, yes.
And Stephen Deere has coordinated that. And I would encourage anybody else in the public that wants to be involved maybe to...
And it will be advertised, you know, there will be information out there about it.
And the intention also is to have some level of historical talk before that cleanup to inspire the students, give them some historical perspective, and also the community. Just, you know, everybody knows it as a great swimming hole, but there's much more to it.
There's so much valuable history there, you know, and I think if we can, that would be a wonderful idea to have kind of a little informational moment before they do the cleanup, so they know what they're doing, especially the kids. You know, I don't know how much history the kids are aware of, and you know, to let them know the value of this wonderful place.
And the Long Trails can also do it end of the season cleanup, but in between, there's a lot of weeks, and I guess we would encourage if there are some volunteers, and Sharon's volunteered to maybe participate in that, and I think we're comfortable maybe having this under the umbrella of the Dorset Chamber, and we'll put some information, intention is put some information up there on the chamber site, and use that as maybe an umbrella to, you know, further the active community involvement.
And we're
kind of making it up as we go.
We are, and that's why I really would really welcome any ideas that you all have that we can do. I think as we all come together and we talk about it, then we can come up with ideas ways that we can all be part of it, and have our children be part of it, you know, because it is such an incredible gift. It's a treasure. It's really a treasure. And I think that if we, I was thinking that we should have maybe a meeting of people who are interested in doing something and coming together and seeing how we can, you know, form committees, maybe cleanup committees, maybe there are a number of things here. Steve and I spoke with Dick yesterday on the phone, and we asked him, what are some of the things that can be done at the quarry that could possibly make a difference and help them to feel comfortable that the community is involved and that we do care, and they're not on that raft out there by themselves. You know, because I think the idea that they're there by themselves is the thing that is making them feel, well, is it worth it? Or should we keep doing this? You know, you know, why are we doing this? Do people really appreciate it, and are they part of it? So I think these are a couple of the things. Did you want to go through a couple of those things?
No, Sally, I think you have the list, and you're much more articulate than I am.
You know, the possibility of installing an electric line. There is a pole there, just to have one of those motion lights that, you know, if people were in there or something was going. These are just little ideas. Replace some of the missing trees and bushes. As I mentioned before, some of these bushes that were taken down have now made a dangerous situation, because these were blocking some of the big boulders that shouldn't be climbed. And now that those bushes are down, it's an open invitation for kids just to climb wherever they want to climb. So there are issues there. Also, some of the dirt that was the roots that were holding some of these old boulders are gone. So there are some issues there. You know, should some of these areas be closed off, where, you know, or somehow hidden so that kids can't get in there and can't. You know how kids are. I mean, my God, they get in there and they're so excited they'll just go anywhere. So I think that's one of their main concerns, and a program of plantings and probably replacing some of these trees, and, you know, a beautification. What a wonderful project. A beautification project to kind of make it even better than it is, or to replace the things. Bob and I were there with our sister and brother-in-law the other day, and it broke my heart to see how barren it is, how much was really taken. I mean, you can't imagine it. Go there and take a look. It's, you know, the things that were cut down. There's some pictures over here for all of you to look at, but it's just unbelievable. Additional signage.
Yes.
You know, I'm thinking there needs to be more signage, that it is privately owned and that these are the rules. You know, because there are signs there, but I'm not sure they're enough. I think maybe additional signage would be helpful.
But more than that, with the signs.
Yeah.
Yeah, one positive is Casella last year, and they're continuing to provide that support on their behalf as they've provided trash receptacles.
And that has made a huge difference. You know, in the years gone by when I would swim there, I always take my little garbage bag every morning and kind of clean up as I go along. But last year there was quite an improvement, and that was because of that. And Casella is wonderful to have done that for the community.
May I speak to the signs?
Hmm?
May I speak about the signs?
Yep.
Sure.
I was thinking about what you were saying about the quarry having so much interesting history. Why not have the signs speak to the history all around the quarry in little snippets, as well as including how to be a caretaker for this beautiful piece of our history, of our
That's a good
national
idea.
history.
We, as a matter of fact, one of the things as we go along, and that's down there, was to have a display case there. Some kind of something that, you know, with the history of the quarry. I mean, the Dorset Historical Society has the most fabulous quarry exhibit. Thanks to Art Gilbert, my most wonderful cameraman, who's been my cameraman forever. But he and Terry Tyler established this fabulous quarry exhibit that's at the Historical Society. So to have an exhibit there for people to be able to, they read the sign, that's the oldest quarry in the United States, but they don't know the other history. So that would be another thing that would be, you know, again, a wonderful thing to do. Let's say, oh, and, you know, gravel for the path. So he has certain ideas of things that could be done that the kids could even help with in the beautification, having, or the cleanup or whatever. A lifesaver ring. They had a lifesaver ring that was there for people in case they needed it and somebody stole it. Oh. So, you know, that was something. Maintaining the parking area. So there's no end to what we can do, and I think that as we come together and come together with ideas as a community, we can make a huge difference in this. Does anyone have any stories about the quarry that they'd like to share? Sue, you have family who has swam at the quarry for years.
Well, I do remember when my sons were, I guess, 5 and 7, and their little jackets, then when they made it across the quarry for the first time. That was a great thing. But, you know, to know about the history of it adds enormously to the experience, and the experience is very special. People swim in lakes and rivers and ponds and in the ocean if they're on the coast, but the quarry swimming is very, very special. It's cold. It's like the Arctic in May, but on a hot August day, it can cool you down for the rest of the day. And one of the special things is after you get adjusted to the water, you move around and you get one of those cold springs coming up from below, which is a big shock. So it's something wonderful that really should be preserved for the community if it can possibly be done. I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so too. Louise, you had a story about your family going to the quarry, a very special, if you don't mind sharing that. That was a beautiful story.
My mother, you mean?
Yeah.
I'm fourth of 5 generations swimming in that quarry. And my kids love it there, and my mom swam there, and she thought it was very special. And she always loved the environment, and we always picked up garbage wherever we were. Leave a place more beautiful than you've ever found it is the motto she always said, and my kids and I have always left that. So whenever we've been at the quarry, we've asked people to pick up after themselves. I've thrown beer cans back up at the kids who threw them back in the quarry and told them, take it out with you, put it in a bag, and don't put it back in the quarry. I think that's been the most special, but 5 generations of having that quarry there and nurturing it. And I swim laps, and every time I'm there, and 6 times 1 up and back is a lap, makes a mile.
Is that right?
Okay.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
I love the idea of a board expounding on the history of the quarry. There's one at the Equinox. When you walk around the Equinox Pond, they have a huge wooden, and it's information that you never, could dream of.
Yeah.
And that would make it. I mean, it's important, but that would expound on the
What a wonderful
importance.
project that would be.
Oh,
there
yes.
are projects that we can do as volunteers and coming together, and I think that's why we're here today, is to kind of get the juices flowing, get the ideas going.
Just trying to connect the dots. I mean,
What
there's a lot
ideas
of
can you share?
how
To
can
let
you
us
make a
know.
difference?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, I think so too. Did you want to say something?
I could. I'm originally from New York State, and my granddaughter comes up in the summer, and my son and daughter-in-law, and the first thing in the summer when they get to my house is, when are we going to the quarry?
Yeah.
They just love it.
Yeah,
It would be very sad.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
I do give tours of the quarry, or of the area, actually. And I have a number of grumbling husbands that have come along on my tour with their wives, And the quarry is about the third stop that we make. And I would say, at least, I don't know, 5 or 6 men have said, after we visited the quarry, I've given them the history, all the stories about it, they've seen it, they say to me, well, I guess this tour won't be so bad after all. I also want to say that I think if we all take a personal responsibility, because it's one thing to give the history, it's another thing to make sure that people are treating the quarry the way it should be treated. And if we all take a personal responsibility, if we ever are at the quarry and we see something happening, to say something about it, or at least contact the proper officials and let them know.
Yeah, yeah.
So-
I think that's really important. I know when I'm there, if there's somebody with a dog, I always say to them, "I hope you have a little doggy bag," because
I wanted to say, I am new in the community. In fact, my second anniversary will be May 1st that I moved into Dorset, and certainly coming through on Route 30 and seeing this wonderful thing, and then volunteering at the Historical Society with Sue here, and seeing all the old photos and knowing the history of where that stone went from this little part of the world is really quite moving. But I'm profoundly moved by the man who just spoke. I know nothing about Mr. McDonough, but I think what an incredible task and burden. And when he was trying to say, maybe seize the idea of what it was that sustained him and his wife in trying to keep this place open, I felt he was choking up. I felt he was
when he
really
talked
moved
about
by
the
that.
children.
The
When he
children
talked
and
about
how
the
he's trying to
children.
do that.
yeah,
I was most dismayed, though, when he said he tried to find some support from our officials and then found that they did not resolve the issues or even respond in what would have seemed to an outsider to be a more appropriate, more efficacious way. So maybe we, in this kind of a meeting, we can give the groundswell that says, wait a minute, Mr. Policeman, we need your help.
You know, it's
on
a-
occasion, we do need your help.
yeah. And it's a very complicated situation because it is private property. So the police cannot go on his property without his permission. So it isn't just that they refuse to do it or are negligent in it. It's a matter of, and we were talking with Dick about that, where the police were allowed to come to the parking lot but not to actually go on his property without his personal permission to do it. So that is something that will be addressed and will be taken care of. But I think, he another thing about Dick, which he didn't mention in it, is that he was a swimmer. He holds some world records and international records for swimming. So that's when they came
The
here.
butterfly, I believe.
Yes, and so he came and he saw this wonderful quarry and he thought, this is so wonderful, and his love of swimming, really is what spurred them on to the quarry, and so there's so much to this couple. They're such a wonderful couple.
Yeah, I think there's just a lot of layers, and I think everyone's well intended, including the select board with Dorset, the Dorset Chamber.
Oh, absolutely.
Rob, the town managers, doing as much as he can, playing a very active role. And I think some of it is us as a community and as voters to communicate to our...
Absolutely. I think we are the ones who have the power if we use it. If we make our voices known and we let people know that this is what we're interested in and how can we come about having this happen.
So, example, one thing we can do is, put it on the town vote day for next year. And if we have an umbrella of allowing the town to give some money to an organization that was, furthering the goals of the quarry is a definite
That's a great idea.
action. And I think the town and I think the voters would support that. And I think it's just kind of connecting the dots. With the police, Dick is, per conversation yesterday, he's connecting with Rob, who's town manager and a good facilitator on this, and Rob is also communicating that he does have Dick's permission to, or the police do have permission
and
to.
I think Dick is going to follow up on it as well. So I think there are things that we're learning about that we didn't know about, and things that we can do that we had no idea of, and that's why it's important for us as a community to come together and come together with our ideas and do something, and make a difference. And again, the kids. The kids are so special, and they love it so. When I was there, taking the asking people to write down what they were thinking, and so many of the families said to have a place where you can come as a family and be in the sun and swim, and it doesn't cost anything. I mean, it's such a gift and it's such a treasure, and I think these people have been so unbelievable, and I think that we can, we'll put something together and have people able to come and give their ideas and share their ideas and see what we can do, because I do believe that we can make a difference. Don't you?
Yes,
I mean,
definitely.
absolutely we can make a difference.
I think 95% of the people we've talked to have been positive, and there's always a few naysayers, which we all run into.
Oh, but we don't care about them.
And you can't reason with these people, so it doesn't really help.
They're not the ones that I think that we really we can do something.
Can I say something?
Of course you can.
I've sort of I think that the quarry is an example of one of Vermont's traditions, which one of the things that makes Vermont kind of unique, in that Vermont encourages private landowners to share their property for recreation purposes. I'm not sure whether other states do that, but it's a big deal in Vermont. I mean, we've heard it with the sort of legal protection that Dick McDonough mentioned. I bring this up because during the winter, I hear on public radio the slogan that the Vermont Association of Snow Travelers, otherwise known as VAST, uses. They have a slogan that says, when property owners share, show you care. It's encouraging the snow travelers to treat that property with respect. I don't know where that suggestion goes. I mean, I like the idea of putting some signs in the around the quarry that explain parts of it, but I think that the whole concept of respect for the property owner is something that we really have to encourage.
Yeah, and also respect for the land, for the quarry. Respect for our earth and our I think that's a really important. I like that. And what is that? Take out what you bring in. You see that some places where you go, and I think. Again, so many of the people who are there don't know, and it's up to us to educate and to let them know. And as far as, I think as we encourage the youth and as they get involved, they'll love it as much as we do, and they'll respect it as much as we do. And our kids are great. We just need to share with them.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to mention is that we are doing a concert series.
Yes, talk about that.
And it's sponsored by the town of Dorset and with the Dorset Chamber, and we're going to do a series of 3 of these concerts. And the with 2 of them being on the town green, but the first concert is scheduled to be at the Quarry.
Isn't that neat?
So to bring some positive attention, it's going to be Lee Romano and his band, the Don't Leave Band. So it's July 12th. And anyway, come to the Quarry, and we'll have some literature, I think, at that point to bring attention to the goals and the challenges of the Quarry. And also, it'll be a point where I think we'll also encourage donations to help further the cause.
Well, for the things that need to be done.
Right, yeah.
And if it could be done under the umbrella of the Chamber, then we know that it's all, you know, I think Dick had mentioned a 501c3, but I think that they felt that that's not the way to go.
It's not on the fast path.
No, it's not. That's not the direction to go at this moment. But I think if it any donations that go through the Chamber, you know, will be slighted for exactly, or I don't mean slighted.
And this is Roger Squire, our leader with the Dorset Chamber.
And he's
Roger,
smiling.
Our esteemed leader.
You're esteemed.
I'm sure to say esteemed
leader.
Absolutely.
And bridge player.
Right. World class.
World class.
Soon to be. People who would like to make a donation or contribution of some form can write out a check payable to the Dorset Chamber of Commerce, and on the memo line say for the Dorset Quarry, and the Chamber's address is P.O. Box 121 in Dorset.
And I think we, Bob?
Thank you. Much is said about community, and it's used in a way that sometimes people lose sight of. We happen to have a quarry that happens to be by nature in the town of Dorset. But this is a resource not just for the Dorset community. This is a resource for the entire state of Vermont. And if you were to look at the newspaper USA Today, it's the entire country, and now with the internet, the entire world. That said, however, we have within our own community not just the people that you have here, but you have organizations who have missions to do certain things. You have the Historical Society, not just of Dorset, but also of Manchester. And I think one of the greatest challenges we have as a society today is to get various 501c3s, of which we have quite a bit in this region, in this area of the state, to work together in helping to fulfill their missions to do the very thing that we may seek to do for the Dorset Quarry. Because not just the Dorset Quarry, it's the quarry of the state of Vermont. And where you have organizations working together, you have further synergy and you have further community coming to bear. So it's not just a group of isolated people, but I think if we can get historical societies to work together and the recreational groups together, Dorset, Manchester is just one small regional area. It's a very powerful area because generally it has a certain amount of people who will contribute, either time, money, or energy. But I think that's what you have to kind of look at. And maybe certainly the Dorset Chamber of Commerce might serve as a spearhead. But I think good things can come from this, not just for the quarry, but for building initiatives on a local level to make things work, because we cannot count upon various levels of government to help us in this. This is a local issue, but it's not just in the town of Dorset.
Right. Thank you. I think you're absolutely right. And I think, quick.
Oh, well, one suggestion might be sustainable gifts or donations in memory of someone.
And that is definitely something to consider down the road.
It could be $5 a month, or you know,
there can be all kinds of
something that would be to keep it moving, to keep it in the wind.
Yes, I love it. Thank you. That's great. That's it. This has been a wonderful start, don't you think? I think we've really, let's give ourselves a hand. Because we've certainly gotten a place to start, and I love what you said about including. You know, it's very exciting, and I think we've got something that we can do, and I think that we're just about running out of time. So I want to thank each and every one of you for being here. This has been wonderful, and there are wonderful ideas, and please jot them down and let us know. And I think we'll set up a meeting where we can invite everyone in the community who wants to come and and
Yeah, I'm
share
suggesting
those.
that we do that after you get back from Bermuda, maybe?
Or no, before. Yeah, we have to do it before then. That's not till May 22nd.
May 22nd.
Yeah, no. We have to do that.
We will, we'll announce something maybe on the chamber site, but
we'll also put it in the
encourage-
guide, and we'll put it all. We'll spread the word, and it'll be word of mouth and whatever. But I do think that this is very exciting. I am so excited that you're all there, and for all of you at home, gee, I hope you're going to join us. I know you're going to join us in this because this is wonderful, and this is about all of us, and it's about our children and our grandchildren and generations to come. So let's preserve this beautiful, beautiful treasure, and let's say thank you to Dick and Kirsten McDonough for all they have done for us, and let's let them know how much they mean to us. Thanks so much, and until the next time, bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.